It's Monday, July 1st, 2024. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we're talking about car dashboard technology. So,
we already got a new month here.
Yeah,
So-
got a whole new month. June feels like it just flew by. But also, I've spent a lot of time outside, at least. A lot of bike rides so far.
Some more June. Not enough June.
Thing is, June had August temperatures, and now it's cooler today, temporarily. But, biking to and from work has been annoying lately because in New York City, there's really only one good way to bike to my office. Like biking home, there's two different ways I could go, and the way home is really nice. But the way to work is pretty much you either take 2nd Avenue or you go like way out of your way just by the nature of...
I still think you could just go and just don't even... Your work is not far south enough. You could just go west, get off the bike, and walk south.
That would take me about 30 minutes as opposed to the 12 minutes it takes me to just bike all the way
walk
down.
faster.
That's New York walk. I walk between, because remember, if you go straight across the bridge and just get off.
What's the hurry?
That's where the later I leave for work, the later I can sleep in.
Yeah.
But, so anyway, it sucks because biking to work, 2nd Avenue is just like destroyed right now.
Yep.
And
They do this, they grind up the street and then because they're going to repave it. And obviously that's the process. And then because New York City streets have so much shit under them, whenever they grind up a street to repave it, they leave it ground up for a while so that anyone who's got to go under the street to do something, utilities, whatever, should theoretically be planning and organizing to do it during that ground up period. And then when they repave it, they'll theoretically have a nice long period before anyone has to cut up the brand new asphalt pavement, whatever, right? And so that's the idea. It's a good idea in theory. The problem is they do not coordinate. In reality, they do not coordinate with all the various agencies and departments and people well enough to get all that, the work done during the ground up time. And so what inevitably happens is they grind it up. People do some work while it's ground up.
Yeah.
They repave, and then someone cuts right into that shit like the next week, every single time. And it's like, where were you last week? Is this really an emergency that suddenly appeared that we didn't know? But the thing is, when it's ground up in that state, it is awful to drive on, and it is even worse to use any other smaller vehicle on.
Yep.
Because it is just...
So... like biking on this stuff, especially because it can be one of two kinds of awful. If they grind it horizontally, like perpendicular to the road, to the path you would drive, then it's kind of like a vibrating brrr when you ride over it. But if it's angled the other way and you're on a bicycle, then your bike tires are going to be like sliding into these little grooves like you're riding your bike on a record. And they're equally bad, but in different ways. So one thing that's kind of funny is biking now to work every day. There's a lot of people are just still biking because they have no other way to go. So now bike traffic is resumed on the street. But everybody's biking like at a glacial pace. And I'd say about a third of the bikers are just biking on the sidewalk and getting into all sorts of kerfuffles.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yep.
What do they...
So I'm just biking in the street and maybe this is just my mountain biking stuff, but like other people biking.
Ass doesn't get destroyed.
Yeah, yep, ass off the seat, and also flexing with the arms. So other people are going like 3 or 4 miles an hour because if you go even a little bit fast, the bike's gonna be going like fucking crazy.
Yep.
I'm going max speed of the e-bike, which is 20 miles an hour, and the bike is just going like crazy, and I'm just treating it like a mountain bike. I'm driving faster than the cars on 2nd Avenue right now.
Okay.
But on the way home, I saw something that I've never seen before in my, I've resolved to never tell a bike story again about my commute unless I say something I've never said before. And I saw someone ahead of me on the way home, and there's a lot of bike traffic on the Queensboro Bridge. So it's not like I'm going to pass this guy. So I'm just going real casual behind him, and he's wobbling a lot. And I see he's just looking at his phone. But what he is doing on his phone, he is playing chess. He is just straight up.
I thought you were going to say looking at porn, so that's actually...
He is straight up playing chess and putting his full attention on it while the bike just sort of wobbles back and forth. And I watched him take like 7 turns over the course of the Queensboro Bridge. I don't think he looked up at any point.
Well,
So I don't know if he was winning that game of chess, but his biking was definitely D tier, I would say.
hey, listen, chess boxing compared to chess biking.
Ooh, there'd be a sport, chess
no
biking.
problem. Chess biking's no problem compared to chess boxing.
Yeah. What about chess? Well, all right, chess biking on 2nd Avenue in its current situation.
If you drop your phone, you lose.
If you drop your phone, you better turn around and get it.
Here's how to make the chess biking exciting, right? So you're biking around this area, right? And there is a chess board in the middle of the area with the pieces on
Every time you pass the board?
Right. It's like in order to see the board, you have to bike near it. In order to move pieces, you have to bike near it. And no fixies allowed, because then you could just sort of try to stay still, And if you touch the ground, your opponent, you just lose your next turn every time your foot touches the ground. So you have to keep moving around this area. So it's like you look at the board, try to memorize it, and then when it's your turn, get back to the board, move your piece, and hit the chess clock. Right? And it's like if you're doing a drive-by move. It's like if you might move your piece illegally or move it to the wrong spot, and it's like, well, you let go of it, touch shit. I guess you could try to go on one pass, pick up the piece and hold it, and on the second pass, put it down in the exact right spot. That could be a good strategy.
There was a Taskmaster once that had something that was the task made you do a bunch of stuff, but the rule was you have to be on a bicycle the entire time, and your feet can never touch the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tasked go get all these plates and take them to this other table and set them on the table, and then sort these books.
Exactly. Sort
these books that are sitting on a table.
Right. But obviously, a fixie would be cheating because you would just sort of stay still near the board, right? And whoever had the strong legs would win.
I would say make it be a mountain bike, because then you could just stand still if you have extreme skills.
Yeah, I think the idea is you want to stop the people from standing still to make it more interesting.
True.
Well, otherwise, the whole game becomes
speed style. It's an e-bike that has a minimum speed of 3 miles an hour.
It's just always moving.
It's always moving. As a minimum speed, you can pedal; it'll go faster. If you
I guess somebody could always bring the rear wheel up into the air and hop on the front wheel and just sort of stay hopping.
I was about to say that's the mountain biking technique.
Skills.
You can just, as a mountain biker, I can just hang out on either wheel indefinitely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying it doesn't even have to be bicycle, right? Maybe you could do it with scooter and both wheels have to be on the ground, or you think up some way to keep the person always moving. Anyway.
Yeah. So in the news, it's not tech news, but it's a big enough deal that we got to talk about it. And the Supreme Court has made a series of catastrophic decisions recently, and I don't have time to get into all of them. Chevron is already bad. The EPA one is already bad. But this one is absolutely, I'd say shocking, but I've lived in America for the last 4 years. It's actually not shocking at all. I expected this outcome, which really says a lot. The Supreme Court has ruled that the President of the United States has absolute immunity for anything he does in office, even if it's a crime, as long as it's under the color of being an official act of the office.
That's correct. But what they did not say is they did not say what an official act is and what an unofficial act is. So it is still possible, though I don't know how likely, right, that the lower court, or even they could come back to the Supreme Court to answer that question later, would say that only an official act is when you're executing the laws and that's it, or executing the Constitution within your oath of office, and everything else is an unofficial act. Or they could say something anything the president does is an official act, or they could be almost nothing the president does is an official. It could go so many ways, right? But it is still not great because, we live in a place where we thought we had a rule of law and that all people, even presidents and Congress people and Supreme Court justices, are subject to the same laws. And so, to say that any human who's a U.S. citizen is somehow, different from the other people and in any case whatsoever is immune or has some sort of immunity is not cool.
And it's especially bad for a few reasons. So the one thing that's important here is that the Supreme Court right now is fully corrupt in the United States, and every vote is basically a 6-3 vote. And not
all of them. There was a unanimous one today. It's the ones that are political hotbeds and are a big deal. Right?
Yep.
The other ones that, like, there was the one today about the
social media one.
Yeah, and that was a unanimous,
Yep.
right? They all agreed, even
But
the bad ones.
What's
and
tricky
the good
here,
ones.
and this isn't just me spitballing, this is legal scholars saying this exact thing. What the court is doing very obviously and transparently is the fascist justices on it who are trying to assist the Republican Party in basically their takeover of the U.S. government. They're voting on decisions that will help them achieve this goal, and giving the wins to the fascist side. But they are giving token weak wins on other issues that are related, like they allowed a certain number of emergency abortions in one red state that banned them. And those rulings are easily overturned by them again in the future, the way they're structured. And they're doing this so that someone who's not super paying attention and doesn't really understand the court, when someone like us or a legal scholar says the Supreme Court is crazy and broken and we're in trouble, they'll look at the news and they'll see, oh, but the court voted yes on these 3 Democratic things and these 4 Republican things, so it looks pretty fair to me. Like, it's very much a strategy. And the second thing that an analyst pointed out today, because this just happened, their goal here was very clearly to give Trump as much immunity as possible, but simultaneously not make a ruling that is so obviously catastrophic that the pitchforks come out right now and like the court loses its legitimacy to the point that the ruling doesn't matter. So what they've done is they ruled on this to give him absolute immunity for official acts, but left a bunch of other questions like the one you pointed out open, and then kicked it back down to the lower courts. And now, just now, breaking news, while they are handing it back down to the lower courts for the rest of those decisions, they will not do so for 32 days from today, because their second clear goal is to ensure that there cannot be any further trials of Donald Trump until after the election, after which point he'll just pardon himself for everything and it's over.
Well, that's okay, because they just gave the current president immunity from doing all sorts of crimes.
Joe Biden could order the Marines to arrest and imprison Donald Trump.
The question is that he doesn't yet know if that would be an official act, and also would the Marines do it?
I would say he is the commander-in-chief of the United States military. He
can
order them to do whatever the fuck he wants.
There's a lot of unknowns there, right? But the point is, there are the illegal things that he could do that could be construed, depending on rulings, as official acts and get away with them to better the nation. And if he was not a coward and a weak old man, he would do them immediately.
I think it's worse than that.
He has yet to do so, but he has several months to do so.
So he has already done this with executive orders. He has, I think, pushed through more impactful executive orders than any modern president. And he's gotten around a bunch of Supreme Court cases with that. But in this case, the problem is I am 100% confident that if Donald Trump or a Republican did something crazy,
they will immediately do every crime.
Yep. But also
they will have no hesitation whatsoever, and then they'll be like, they'll just do the crime whether it's an official act or not, and then be like, all right, fight me on it later, right? Even if they're wrong and they lose, it's like, well, I did it, and it took you this long to do anything about it.
But meanwhile,
and so that is what the Democrat, you have to do the same thing. If they're going to do that, you have to do the same thing. Just whether it's an official act or not, just do it. And if you lose the court case later, it doesn't matter, because you did it. It happened.
Well, speaking of the court case later, so I'm pretty confident if Biden actually did anything
and you're an old man, you're going to die anyway. So what do you care if you get found guilty of doing a crime with your that's not an official act?
I'm pretty confident this Supreme Court would fast track it and immediately rule against him and decide that specific thing and no other thing is not an official act.
Well, good. Then start doing all the things that Trump is going to do, and then those are all now set as as official or whatever, right? One way or the other, to preemptively prevent him from doing them.
But this is a big enough deal to where Sotomayor, who is one of the 3 intelligent people on the Supreme Court who's trying to do the right thing, took the extraordinary step of reading her dissent, which generally doesn't happen.
They do it once in a while.
It's rare. It's usually only done when someone has an extreme anger over a decision. And basically said that this is like the end of democracy, this kind of decision. Like, this is insane. Jackson, Ketanji Jackson Brown, our newest Supreme Court justice, who is an absolute goat right here, also penned a separate dissent, basically pointing out that, what's the line here? Yeah, the first one, with fear of our democracy, I dissent, at the end of her 30-page dissension. And then Brown basically said, this breaks new and dangerous ground only to the most powerful official in our government.
All right. So they're basically telling, right, to two things that we just said. They're telling Biden, hey, Biden, the court just decided you have all these powers. Please use them. And they're also telling Biden, like, hey, Trump is going to use them. Use them.
Yeah.
So
I think a takeaway here is that there's a lot of things going on right now, and the U.S. is in a really dangerous place. But
the whole world is dangerous. Look at what France is doing in their elections, right?
No, the French election. So, total aside there, how that's gone so far. Their elections are really complicated. I'm not going to try to explain them. I learned them in high school French class.
They're as complicated as they are. They're more democratic than ours.
I mean, every country in Europe except like Hungary and Poland has a more democratic process than us. But the way their elections work, after this round, then there'll be like more elections. Like they do a really complicated process. Basically, the center and the left and the far left parties, like all the people in America would just be Democrats. They are currently coordinating to drop out everyone but one of them in key races, because there are more non-fascists in France who vote than there are fascists, but the non-fascists are split among 3 or 4 different major parties, whereas the fascists are all in one fascist party. So if the non-fascists can all just agree that we're going to make sure we all vote for one of us in every contested seat, they can still win the government and prevent the fascists from taking power.
Yep.
This is impossible in America.
I guess that's necessary because it's not a ranked choice. Because if it was a ranked choice, you wouldn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Because all the voters would just rank all the non-fascists and not rank a fascist.
Yep.
And then it would just happen. You wouldn't need to do that.
Yeah, but there's pros and cons to all those different kinds of votes. But
obviously,
the U.S. left could definitely take a page from that, looking specifically at all the people who, because Bernie Sanders or someone they liked didn't win the Democratic primary, they chose not to vote in the election that determines which power-seeking coalition controls the entire country.
Anyway.
Yep.
But yeah, I think the thing I'm going to keep saying is because, and we're going to go through a dark time, likely, right? We knew it was coming. It's just, you just feel more dread as you get closer, right? Like, you see a shark out swimming towards you and you're stuck in the middle of the ocean, and it's just like, the shark might come and eat you. And then, okay, it's coming. Now I see it's coming straight at me, but it's still a mile away. It's like, well, now it's 1,000 feet away. It's like, it's not a surprise, but the things I'm going to say and continue to say is that, number one, people have lived through dark times before. That doesn't make them good or not
and a
dark,
lot of people didn't live through them.
And a lot of people did not live through a dark time. And that is the key, is to, no matter what dark shit happens, right, stay alive. Don't die, right? If you can just stay alive somehow, however you have to stay alive, right, you're with other people like us and other people you don't even know. Most people, in fact, depending on where you live, right? You can stay, as long as, no matter how dark shit gets, is you can stay alive with other like-minded peoples and have your human life somehow.
Yep.
And there could be a way through, right? Dictators have fallen.
Well,
right?
I mean, you can take heart in the fact that every time, even going back to Rome, because Roman government at various stages was basically a form of fascism. Fascist governments are really good at tearing themselves apart relatively quickly, but not quickly enough for individual humans.
Yep. But it's like, you look throughout history and it's like, there have been many dark times, including a whole dark age. And it might take longer than your lifetime. Who knows? But shit eventually, right, switches the other way. So just to have any chance of seeing that, right, you just need to stay alive. And then once you've achieved staying alive, because you can't do anything if you're not alive, right, you can then put any extra energy you might have towards fighting.
Yep.
And then that's it. You can't, what else can you do? It's like, I can vote, the end.
Yep.
Right.
So speaking of which, if you want to avoid having to internalize what Scott just said, there is a path out of this. If Biden wins the election, that buys us at least 4 more years to try to solve this.
It is possible for that to happen.
Yeah. I would
Doesn't
say it
seem
is
likely.
unethical to vote for anybody but Joe Biden
Well,
in the U.S.
obviously.
presidential election. Like that, like
Yeah.
this is, you're not choosing what person you want to be president. You are deciding between two power-seeking coalitions, one of which is a coalition of almost everybody who isn't a fascist, and the other one is people who will literally kill us.
So,
All right, got some tech news.
okay.
Good modern practices for Python development.
Yeah. All right. So, when you're a computer programmer, right, no matter what language you choose to do your biz with, right, there's always like a bunch of stuff that is not like part of the language itself. And when it's actually time to like solve real world problems, you have to bring in libraries, you have to bring in tools. And it's like there might be 10 different ways to do a thing, and you don't know which one is the best one, right? And these questions are always in flux, right? Especially with a popular active language, the scene is always changing. And like what was the best tool yesterday is no longer the best tool. And the preferred method of doing something, there might be a new release of the language that has like a new technique, and that is a better way to do a thing. And this is what sucks, is like once you have a big project, it's like trying to update it and keep it, it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with this code, it's working, but do I bother to put in the effort to like rewrite the code, or even just small parts of it, or change the tooling to meet the modern best way of doing it, or keep doing it the old way that still works, right? And what even is the current best way? That is the tough question, right? It's like you're sitting there with 10 different tools to choose from, 5 different techniques to choose from. What the hell? Which one should I pick? They all work. They all do the same thing. Which one's the best one? So this person wrote an article, and they wrote Python Best Practices 2024. And I come across these once in a while of people basically, zealously saying, these are the ones I like. You should use what I use, and I'm the person to listen to, right? And they're all disagreeing with each other, and it makes it even harder for someone who isn't in the know to know what they should be using, right? But this one stood out to me because I'd say over half of the recommendations that they made are things that I was already doing independently, not based on any recommendation, just from experience of trying many different things and landing on a particular thing.
I'd say the Scott seal of approval is a pretty high bar to reach.
And so then the other things they recommended that I was not doing, I was like, well, this person's so in line with me on like more than half of their opinions. The things that they said that I'm not doing, I'm going to look into those things. And so, yeah, if you are doing any Python programming, I will personally seal of approval these recommendations for the time and the near future until they change again. And you'll have to read best practices late 2024 or early 2025 when things are completely different again, and you're enjoy.
So in one other little news, you might have noticed the Vision Pro, Apple's pseudo AR VR headset thingy, it kind of disappeared from all popular discussion pretty quickly.
Well,
after it
came out, people laughed at it, some people bought it, and it appeared a couple times, and then people sort of forgot about it because it's like you either bought it right away or you didn't buy it at all. There's no one going to buy it later.
So it looks, so apparently Apple has not given up on this, but at the same time...
No, they did. At WWDC, they talked about it a lot.
Yep. But despite not giving up on it, the changes they are making to it in terms of how they sell it and features they intend to invest in for it seem to be the worst possible ones to change their situation. They're not like pivoting who they're aiming it at. They're doubling down on a market that doesn't seem to exist, which is kind of really funny. So they seem to be wanting to really double down on people using this for productivity and work and like basically doing Zoom meetings.
It does have some interesting capabilities for that, but it's just impractical and kind of silly and laughable to do that frequently. That's like, it comes across as like if you were making a movie, the supervillain would be using this to do their Zoom meetings. Right? It's like not a normal person.
Because honestly, like it's replicating the parts of a meeting into the digital space that aren't the ones that are important for most digital kinds of meetings. Like when I have most meetings, no one even really needs to see my face. They need to hear my voice and they need to see whatever the fuck I got on the screen.
I mean, if I could talk to Tim Apple, obviously I would talk to him about many other things first. But if I had to talk to him about this particular product and I could get an honest answer, I would be like, "Are you using it for your meetings? How often?"
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure he has several, or at least one in his office. But I'm like, "How often are you really using it?" Right? If I get, it's like either A, he's using it a lot, supervillain style, which is possible.
Yeah.
Or B, he's not using it at all, which basically means deep down inside he knows.
So what they are altering, their new plan, is that they're going to change their in-store demos to show more specific, quote, deep productivity tasks, like using it to perform some actual task in the store. Like they're trying to do longer form demo of something real. They also are dropping the strap they launched with, which apparently was super uncomfortable, and providing a much bigger strap that's more like what
I thought they had like a whole. I thought they had like a whole set of straps, and the people.
The one it came with is super uncomfortable and apparently sucks. And
okay.
Now it's gonna come with the normal kind that every other VR headset uses because the other companies already solved that. It has to go over the top of the head too, or it's uncomfortable. And 3. They are adding a whole bunch of their AI features to Vision OS.
I mean, yeah, that's
That's the extent of their like
tech companies don't. No tech company has any new ideas besides look at things that come out, which is not much, and then jump on them or not.
Yeah.
And Apple found an Apple way to incorporate machine learning with their quote Apple intelligence.
Yeah.
Some of it was actually, the thing that impressed me that I think was actually good was the at the WWDC where they showed the Apple intelligence was the notepad where they were like drawing and doing physics problems like for that was actually very good. I like that.
But I don't think this thing is going anywhere still.
No, we knew that since even before it came out that no one would want this.
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is simulate being at work from home rather than just sitting in my comfy environment with screens. And if I was going to use this for other types of tasks, I feel like it's not the right hardware for it based on its capabilities.
I feel like what's happened in a lot of the tech sphere is that people find new technologies and then, right, because that's what people, like researchers work on is like new algorithms, new, hardwares, things like that. And then they're like, okay, we have a new solution. Let's go find problems, right?
Yep.
There aren't enough people who look for problems and then find solutions. And the people who do look for problems and find solutions, the problem that the tech world has is that the solutions already exist somewhere.
Yep.
We already have,
and the solutions often aren't even technology. This is my day-to-day life as a product manager.
You can't, right. And the thing is, if you're someone who is just a person who takes technology and then builds a solution, like say I am, right, using off-the-shelf stuff and building solutions, there is work for you to do in this world solving people's problems with Postgres or web servers or Linux or RAM hard drives and CPUs or cloud services that already exist, right? It's like there are already things that exist that you can use to solve basically almost everyone's problems. And so there's work that's what most people are working on. If you're a tech company selling tools for someone else to solve problems with, you're trying to give me something to use at my work to then solve someone else's problem with. It's like, I already sort of have everything I need, bro. But they need new ideas. So and there aren't any. We really hit kind of a wall. The machine learning does solve some problems of certain kinds, but it's not.
So as someone who has been a product manager at a global scale for over 13 years now, which is increasingly making me feel old, I have found in my professional experience in capital markets, most problems are not technology problems that require a technology solution. Most problems are operational problems, and the solutions to them are usually operational solutions that may involve technology, but building a feature is not how you solve that kind of problem.
The point is, nobody was sitting around saying, damn, I got this problem. I really just can't figure it out. And then the Apple Vision Pro came out and they're like, that solves my problem. No one in the earth said that. The only person who said that was Tim Apple, who said,
Tim Apple has a problem. I need to make more money.
I need a new product to look like I actually invent something instead of just coming out with this iPhone with a slightly better camera every year.
Yep.
That's the only problem the Apple Vision Pro solved.
The funniest thing is, so I got a product management certification some years ago, just like work made us all do that. And it was fine. Pragmatic. So I have like the full pragmatic like certification, all levels or whatever. And its core thesis, this product management framework, that like the rule one is product management is nothing more than identifying a problem that's out there, coming up with a solution to that problem, and figuring out if you could sell that solution to the people who have that problem. And that's it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think fucking any company on earth outside of like factories making physical bits thinks that way.
No, I think that if you look at it's really weird, right? It's like there's this huge industry of just like business dogmas and procedures and systems,
There's some Six Sigma, whatever.
Right. People love to have consultants come to their company and talk to them about agiles and all this sort of nonsense, right? And get lessons on stuff. But then when they go back to work, they don't ever do anything the person said, or they do, but they only do like part of it half-heartedly. Nobody actually does the things the way those consultants say to do them fully, complete buy-in. And it's like, and then those things, rightly or wrongly, because they're not all correct, right? They're all have this bad reputation of not working. And it's like, well, listen, they might not have worked. I'm not going to, vouch for any of them. But if you didn't give them the honest try of actually truly believing in them and following them, completely, then you're not one to judge whether that shit is real or not. And why do you keep hiring the consultants you're not going to listen to?
Yeah, that's the part I don't get. Because I have been part of consultancy sales to large global financial companies, and they never in my entire life have done anything that we recommended. Ever.
Nope.
All right, put a little marker there. But anyway, things of the day. So I encountered this. I was looking around for some high resolution video because I'm thinking about buying a new TV and I wanted to do some comparisons and whatever. And I'm looking like what 4K content is really out there. And I found a channel that actually has some 8K content.
Yeah.
Since
YouTube is absolutely loaded with HDRs, 4Ks, 8Ks, high refresh rates, because really it's the only platform that supports all those things properly.
But most of the 8K content I could find was really basically nothing but ads. Like it wasn't actually like real content. It wasn't anything interesting.
It's usually like video of animals and shit like that.
Yeah, pure tech
nature,
demos.
landscapes,
Yeah, well, speaking of which, so the one I found that was actually pretty good, and I actually did enjoy watching this video like in the background while I was doing some other stuff.
See, that's rare because usually the demo videos are just like these, makes you feel like you're in a Best Buy. There's no entertainment value to be had.
This video is called Small Birds, because birds is all caps, 8K Ultra HD with names and sounds. And it's
they're not HDR though, they're just 8K?
They're just 8K. It is just video, very high quality close-up video of cool birds doing their thing, and it tells you what each bird is in case you didn't recognize them, and it's only 20 minutes long. It's actually, this is the kind of content I like. I like birds. I like looking at birds. Bird watching's a cool hobby. And also, if you have somehow an 8K monitor out there and you want to watch something that's actually 8K, this is one of the few things out there that isn't just a Best Buy like eye assault. So what do you got?
What was my thing of the day?
Your thing of the day was the arcade cabinet thing.
Oh, right. So, nowadays it's pretty rare for there to be like an arcade that's a permanent installation that lots of people go to, right? They're just in certain places of the world, usually amusement areas.
Yep.
And and even those are not great. They're usually full of cranes. And the actual arcade machines of the world are usually in someone's house, in a collector's warehouse, at a MagFest, right? And those are sort of these temporary either, setups where in order to play, the game's got to be moved and set up, right? And moving arcade cabinets really sucks. They're, the classic ones are big, and you can't really take them apart. And there's a big CRT in there. It's not a great deal. And so when someone rents a truck to bring their games to MagFest from their big warehouse, they can only pick and choose a few, right? If they bring a Frogger, they can't bring a Millipede. That's just how it goes. There's only so much room in there. These people had the job to make some arcade cabinets for some demo games, for some shows, and possibly some other shows, right? That would be reused at various, conferences, conventions, whatever, trade shows around. And they said, all right, we want to make full-size arcade cabinets, but we want them to be able to collapse down and be smaller so that we can then ship a lot of them or ship them more easily in a smaller vehicle.
I'd say that increases the complexity by an order of magnitude.
And then set them up again. And it's like, hey, that's a great idea, actually, because then someone with just like a van instead of a giant box truck could bring, many arcade games to a convention instead of just a few. For a lot less, time, effort, money. And so they succeeded in doing exactly that. They designed and manufactured some collapsible arcade cabinets. Obviously, not having a CRT helps a lot. Obviously, not having a whole bunch of old boards and just having a modern chips in there helps a lot. But even so, it's still the cabinet itself is still like, full. It's full size. It's not like one of those tiny ones you can buy for, your house or whatever.
Yep.
So, really good design. And I hope people can, if I were to make an arcade cabinet to say bring to a MagFest with a game that I made in it, I would probably just get this design and make one myself.
I mean,
a
big part of that is because I imagine you'd want to put that in my trunk, and then
we could just bring it in the trunk, one of them in the trunk of a car, instead of having to rent a vehicle that is capable of hauling, and that would be kind of awesome.
Yeah. If I had more space, I absolutely would make a cocktail format cabinet and just have it.
If I had another room in my house, there would be either
I would have one Rampart machine, one Dance Dance Revolution machine, and
that's a big room.
and one cocktail cabinet if I were rich enough to have space for all three.
I'm not too big fan of the cocktail ones, honestly.
I honestly, I like the aesthetic of the cocktail. Like,
yeah,
I would use it as a coffee table.
Yeah. But, if I had enough room, obviously the first priority would be air hockey.
Yeah.
The second priority would be a pinball, a real one, a good one. And then I would get an arcade cabinet, and of course, it would just have every ROM ever with MAME in there. So I wouldn't pick one game, but I would put into the control panel all the necessary buttons for like every game. 3 trackballs, 3 joysticks. I guess I need 4 joysticks to play X-Men. I wouldn't go to 6. That's too many. Anyway.
So
no steering wheels.
Yeah. Let's get right into it because I think we were long enough on the news there. So we drove somewhere recently in my car, and Scott got to watch a delicate dance. So modern cars are increasingly we're not talking about anything that drives the car itself directly. None of the controls of the car. But what used to just be a dashboard and a radio, maybe if you were rich in the olden days, like a CD player or a CD changer, like an 8-track.
Where you swap out and you put a fancy radio in.
Yep. But you basically had instruments for the car, then you had the entertainment console, and then you had the heating and cooling console, and they're all kind of in the dashboard, and they were largely uniform and pretty standard for a long time, and they were all extremely dumb, often mechanical devices.
There were often a standard set of symbols, even though each car would be different. And some car might some cars had an up-down lever for temperature, where others had dials. But it was still clearly hot, cold, red, blue. You'd have the same symbol for a rear washer wiper, or a front wiper, or a defroster. They would all have the same symbols, car to car to car.
Yeah.
And you could figure it out even if you got to rent a car without having to go to the manual. Probably.
But there was a certain sort of UX of these, partly because of the history of where these instruments came out of. But the UX had to be, like Scott described, it has to be intuitive to someone who sits down in any car anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter where you are. The car has to be intuitive enough to where you can look at the instruments and immediately or very quickly understand how to use them.
Yep. Compare that to, say, an airplane, right? Especially a commercial one where pilots need to have hours and hours and hours of simulator training and, like, you know, on a particular plane to learn the controls of that plane, because it's not the same as the other plane.
Yep.
They got to relearn. And sure, there are a lot of things that are the same plane to plane to plane, because it's still the same core concepts. You know, you still have a stick that goes back and forth, right? But, you know, there's a million, you've seen inside a plane, I'm guessing, and a million switches in there, right? It's like, you got to know what all those do.
But
most of them.
These constraints in a pre-digital era led to these systems being very simple and having very refined user experiences. And the most complex part of any car was the entertainment system in the era where you started to be able to replace them and you started to be able to try to plug like iPods and things into them. And aux cables started to appear, and some people put in the fancy ones. But now we've entered an era to where most cars, and we're going to get to a point to where this is all cars, the entertainment system area is replaced by a touchscreen and a shitty computer. And these shitty computers are extremely shitty. So we have a Toyota
I don't think
car.
it's the computer itself that is shitty. It is the software for it is shitty.
Yeah, it's not like they just put Windows on these things or Android or like something that
Even if they did, that would be a bad idea.
Yes, it would. But
I think some of them are Android-based. I don't know exactly.
I mean, there was the Android-based stuff, but it kind of disappeared. And every car I get in is different. It's usually like by manufacturer. It's like we have a Toyota.
It's weird that they're all different, but yet once I like connect, it's like the same.
Yep. Well, because you don't use 90% of the stuff in there because it's all stupid. I think that's the key. Almost everything that you can do in these screens is stupid. And there's a very small number of things people actually use them for. Usually it's playing music, navigating, and if it's a bad car, also controlling the HVAC if they don't have the HVAC, like actually still having separate physical controls, which thankfully our car has. So our Toyota, the screen with the bad computer in it is widely regarded to be the best of the car computers right now, based on my research. In that that screen,
even better than like if you get like a Benz or a BMW or something.
From what I've read, they are worse in many ways.
Interesting. Okay.
But again, this is me like reading Reddits because I was annoyed about a problem I had.
Yeah, I think that's another problem, is that not how many people have experience with lots of these systems in different cars. Usually car reviewers are reviewing the car. There might be someone out there, because I don't read this sort of thing, who's reviewing car computers, but I can't imagine there's that many. And and when you're buying a car, it's like, if you're a car person who has to buy a car, that's probably not at the most important thing for most buyers, right? It's like
that was near the bottom. We didn't even look at what that thing was capable of when we bought this car because we literally didn't care. We needed a very specific kind of car, and all those extra details were just whatever. So Toyota seems to have the most reliable of them, but even then, our car, one day, not too long ago, this car is brand new. Like, it's got under 5,000 miles on it. It's the newest software. It's the newest screen. Like, it's basically the best you're going to get in a Toyota. And all the Toyotas are the same. And I've driven a lot of cars of a lot of different manufacturers and experienced their car computers, because until we bought this car, I rented cars anytime I needed a car. So every time I rent a car, it's a random car, and I got to try it out. And one day, we get in the car, we start to drive, and the screen just reboots to black, and then clearly just reboots and starts over. And it started rebooting.
Thankfully, that is not involved in the driving part at all.
Nope. But it meant now, instead of navigating where the map and the directions are just being done by the car, now I've got to like make my phone loud enough to hear it tell me where to turn, because I can't use this computer screen anymore. And the other annoying thing is I can't play music because every time it reboots, everything stops, even the radio. And 3, every time it reboots, the screen turns on again, bright white, and blinds me if I'm driving at night, like every 30 seconds in a cycle. This was extremely annoying. So we stopped at a rest stop to eat some lunch, and I've kind of given up on this because I can't get it to work. And I go Google it around, and I end up on some Reddits, and all I find are people who have the exact same problem with random specific Toyota cars. And the answer is always, I don't know, never fixed it, just gave up, disabled the screen, or if the car was still under warranty, dropped it off at the dealership and it took them 3 weeks, and I assume they just physically replaced the entire thing.
Yep. I mean, that's the real problem, right? It's like, it's not an open system that you could say repair yourself if you were a computer professional, or even if you took it to a computer professional, they couldn't do it because it's a closed system. And then if you take it to the dealers are auto experts, right?
Yeah.
They could fix your tires or your suspension or the engine. It's like they don't have computer experts at the dealerships with the tools and knowledge and service manuals necessary or anything, right? It's like the only people who could probably fix the problems with those computers are the people who programmed the system, who are probably in Japan, and that's it. There's probably no one else on Earth who can fix them. And I guess your hope is that they would realize those problems and then push out, over-the-air patches somehow, and that would fix it. But other than that, there's really nothing you can do.
There's no logs,
and unless
there's no
those
admin
people
access, there's no troubleshooting, and even if you hack, like I can get into the dealer menu, like because Google around, you'll find ways to do it. It doesn't give you any troubleshooting tools that will tell you anything.
All right, and so it's this is very similar to the smart TV situation where there's a built-in OS that sucks. You have no control over. If it broke, no one could really fix it. But even on a smart TV. Now having a smart TV, you can just disable and ignore pretty much all of that and use something. I could use the Apple TV. I could just watch channels with the antenna. I don't actually need to use any of the smart TV functions ever. I could ignore it, block it, and disable it to a great extent. Never see the ads it's trying to show because they're blocked. And you're still getting full use of the TV. There is no feature of the TV that is essential that you're not accessing because you're not using the OS that came with it. But if you have a car, it's like, okay, you can drive the car and in Rim's case have HVAC, temperature control, climate control.
I was lucky. If it was a Tesla, that wouldn't have worked.
Right. But, navigation and... I guess you can hear if you're using your phone instead, okay, but the sound system just not working because the computer sucks. It's like that is sort of a core function of the car that is now not working, and you can't do anything about it. And you can't take it to anyone to do anything about. So we're not even talking about like right to repair. We're talking about like no. It's like where they're forcing you to bring it in to get it repaired. It's like, no, they can't even repair it. It's like, could you imagine like my iPhone broke? Shit, there's no right to repair. I can't go to a third party. I have to take it to Apple. You bring it to Apple. They're like, yeah, we can't fix that either. It's like, what are you going to do? Buy a whole new car?
Give us
$2,000
and 3 weeks and we might be able to fix it.
Right. It's like buy a whole new car because the radio's not working, or swap out the whole computer in the car because the mechanic can't possibly flash the OS or actually investigate it in any way as a computer expert.
And the funniest part is some of the problems are caused by the fact that all these systems have basic interfaces because everyone has either an Android phone or an iOS phone. Mm-hmm. So as a result, Android and iOS each have a I am talking to a car feature. That is designed to standardize
CarPlay
this.
or whatever Google calls theirs. They're the same thing.
But the problem is, even if that software works, Apple and Android both update that software, but the car people don't update theirs, nor do they even do a lot of QA.
Yep. Right. I mean, this is one of the reasons I believe Apple was trying to make a car. They failed. But the one advantage would be if they had made a car, then this aspect would have been more acceptable, at least if you had an Apple device of some kind, which I assume you would, because who the fuck buys an Apple car and has Windows computers and Android phones? Nobody, right? Nobody. Apple did abandon their plans for the car, it seems, which probably I'm going to assume for good reasons. But I think, there was some partnership with Apple and certain car brands that has come and gone at times. I think one car brand, I don't forget, recently got rid of it. But I think it would behoove them to either just stop trying to make a fancy car that didn't work, just make a normal car and do the computer part right. And that will have appeal on its own. You don't need to go wild with some nonsense, and find a car brand that will cooperate with you,
partner
make
with
it
you,
worth
and make a car that just works the way Apple phones just work.
Right.
I
Make
walk
it
in, I
worth
set
their
my
while.
Apple phone down on the
Google.
dash, it just
I'm not
works.
trying to Apple fanboy here because I got an iPhone and all Mac devices right
Yep.
now. Right. Google, do the same thing. Google, go find like Google and Samsung. Right. It's like, go ahead, find a car manufacturer that you can make a deal with and be like, listen, we're gonna handle the OS for your car. You don't have you can
Yep.
stop doing it. Right. We're gonna do it. And that will help you. Just let us do that. That'll save you money on development. You won't have to do that.
Yep.
And 2, you will and then make money because people out there will be like, oh, that car has a computer system that doesn't fucking suck. Google made it, and Google keeps updating it, and we can trust it a little bit more. And Google, how are they going to make money on this? Of course, collecting all your data from your car.
Yeah.
Come on.
And then Apple will make money by also doing that, but with a veneer of privacy and by charging the car company money.
Apple will make money on it because it will have very limited features unless you pay their subscription fee.
Yeah.
To Car Cloud.
Yep. But I think these are like I would say that sound system is a necessity, and it's dangerous to not have one for people who drive a lot, because one of the main reasons to have a sound system is to put on music or some sort of content to keep yourself awake if you're the kind of person who has to drive a long road trip by yourself.
Yeah, I guess so. But I think even more important is simply just traffic and weather information.
Yep. Navigating.
Yes. So I think that I agree. There should be, just like a cell phone that has no service can still call 911. I believe there should be some regulation that requires cars, no matter how busted the computer part is, there should be some AM radio functionality. There should be some base set of functionality that should always work, even if the computer dash thing is like fried, like on fire, magic smoke came out.
Yep.
And assuming the rest of the car is still just fine.
Because, I mean, I drove a car 6 miles without a serpentine belt not that long ago. Like, cars are pretty durable.
Yeah, somehow.
I cannot believe I drove that far. I was going about 20 miles an hour in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, these things are awful. And I think we've gone on long enough complaining about them. Let's just stop right there. My hunger.